There's a trail coming off the road going right up behind the into the garden where I first started talking to you at, and goes up and runs into that little field over there. That's a little wheat field back over there on the other side of the little ridge here. But this is right in front of the barn. They walk down the road in front of the barn and come up this little trail and go to the wheat patch coming out of this hollow behind me here. Here's another trail coming right across the road here beside the barn, out of that hollow behind me, going right into my garden, which is right there behind the house. And they'll cross and go over into that little wheat field, or if I've got garden out there, they'll eat that. Well, we got the big old dogs going out there. This is a shot down in the hollow behind the dog lot, just to the left of my garden spot where we first started filming, across the little road that runs out to the top of the hill. And you can see that that's nothing but a thicket down in there. You can see the tops of my blueberries over there. They're kind of brown looking right now. They'll be coming out and budding white. And then we've got a field that I mentioned we'd look at in a few minutes, that's behind Mama's. And it's also, I let it kind of grow up in grass and fescue and things like that. But then at the same time, once you get to that hollow, it's just a thicket out there. And by leaving the grass up waist high, head high, the deer will also bed out there in it. But the deer bed in here, and they'll come right up across here, right across in front of this old barn right here that I'm standing next to. And they'll give the little puppies fits. They'll go up at night. You can hear the deer tromping around, the dogs just barking down in there, barking at them. And they just don't pay any attention to the dogs. But that's a good hollow for them to bed in. And it's right on top of the house. Now I'm standing in my mom's backyard right now. You can see the fence line coming up through here where I mow. I have a blueberry patch in here, about a half acre of blueberries are on the very top of the hill. And then the rest of this field's kind of growed up in briars. You can see briars down there. You can see some tall weeds and bushes. I frequently bush hog this and let it grow up again. Deer bed all down in there. And also in that hollow where you can see the big trees, we've had some timber cut down there, and the deer bedding in there real heavily too. And this is right behind the house. As you can see that clearing through there, right in that area there is where I was standing over there in the other field, and looking back down in that hollow where the deer cross out of this hollow and into the big field. But as you can see, it's pretty grown up right to the property line, and you can get in there and mow it every once in a while. You can leave it like that for 2 or 3 years before you mow it. The deer really like it. They like the high grass, the briars and stuff like that to lay in. And then I'm going to walk over here to my blueberry patch a little bit further this way. It's right in that area, and shoot back down towards the woods. The deer love these rose bushes out here in Mom's yard. You can see where they're cropped off, and they'll eat them off. They'll eat the buds off when they start budding, and we'll spray them with stuff to try to keep them out of here. But they like everything that's in Mama's yard, and she does not like deer, to say the least. Here are my blueberry bushes. I've got 5 rows. It's probably started off with 75 plants, and it's probably about 10 plants to a hill now, 7 or 8 at least. And those guys put out a lot of blueberries. The deer eat a few of them, but they really don't mess with them now that they've gotten big. they'll come by and munch on some of the blueberry fruit. You can see the field going down. It drops down in about 3 terraces. Those little poplars shooting up in front of us right there, I cut those down you wouldn't believe that, but they're not but 3 years old. And I'll cut those down and brush them up in the terrace right there for the rabbits to hide in. You can see the kind of cover it's out here. We've got briars, you got fescue grass, you've got honeysuckle coming up on things, and this is right up here in everybody's backyard. Now, there is a creek right down there where those big trees are right there, and those pines you see right there over on the edge of that big field we were walking down through a little while ago over to the right of my blind. But that hollow's been logged. It's full of brush, and the deer love to bed down in there. And I've also jumped them all out in here. Once you get past these blueberries and start walking out through this high grass, you could jump one anywhere down in here. But and like I said, where I'm set up there on that hill is right past that big pine up there, and I've got this hollow that the deer are coming out of it, they're bedding in. I've got the pasture that's right straight over there across that little opening, across the little creek right there where those trees are, that the deer are bedded out in there. And then I've got all out in front of the dog lot, which is right over there on the other side of where we just walked through, where the deer are bedding. And then I'm set up right in the middle of them where 4 or 5 of the hollows come together. And I'm doing everything I can to pull them out of the woods with wheat, corn. You know, I'm big buck hunting when the does are in heat, and I pretty much don't do any shooting unless it's with a bow until that time, because I don't want to spook them out of here. If you get deer in there around you, a bunch of does, it's a good chance a big buck's gonna come through and get up with them and end up walking out in front of you following a doe. The next time we're going to go on further back down towards the back side of our place. I'll go into some of the bedding areas, cross some of the creeks. There's some larger rubs back down in there. There's a lot of little rubs in here around these fields. But you can see the type of terrain that I'm talking about up next to these houses. And you've got spots like this all over the country. And people just need to recognize them and utilize them. This little clip's a continuation of the first one, looking around the farm. I'm going to go into some bedding areas and down the edge like I talked about before. That's my mom's house, and then directly behind her house we have this fence line, and then I have my blueberry bushes down in here. Behind these blueberry bushes there's about 75 hills, several hundred plants in each hill now. I mean, in the whole thing. The field down below, it's all grass. I'll show it to you. It's kind of growed up, and then we'll walk along the edge down there. Right up in there is my dog lot where we were at the other day. Right in front of it, that's a little wheat field. Long wheat field runs right out through it. It's a little narrow patch. And then right in there behind the dog lot, you see this hollow that runs right up to my house. And it's real thick. It's always been thick. Honeysuckles and different stuff in it. And you can see right up there on through the woods on that where that grassy spot is. My stand blind is just to the left of that, and that's where we were the other day. And this hollow runs right down behind my blind and comes right down through there. We're going to walk on around to the other end. As you can see, I've kind of let this grow up over the last 2 or 3 years. It's a weed field. Also, there's some poplars on the terraces that I cut down every 2 or 3 years, and then kind of let this field cycle around, and it'll get thick, and then I may plant it. I may plant garden or something in it. I just kind of move stuff around, plant it in different places. Here's the middle terrace that we were looking at on that field. As you can see, there's some fescue in there. There's buck rub right over in there. They've been going in that right here. Right on over there, you've got that terrace that's got poplars and briars and stuff on it. And I'll cut those poplars down, let them fall in line with the terrace as I cut them. They're not too hard to cut out every 3 or 4 years. It makes a good spot for the rabbits, but also the deer love those little transition areas. And as we head on down this way, the further you get down towards the bottom of this hill and this hollow down below me, the more they bed in that area. And we're walking right along the property line here also on this side. Now we're looking at the bottom terrace of that field, and it's got a few big saplings right here in the end, but probably bush hog goes out this winter or next spring. As you can see, there's a deer trail going right past that little tree and running right on out there into that area. They'll bed right out in there, but also we're getting right out in here to the creek now, which is a low spot, and where the deer love to lay all down in there. As a matter of fact, most of the time you'll jump them, they'll be right on the other side of this field in those woods, and there's some thick stuff down in there also. There's my electric fence. As you can tell, the deer have kind of tore it up. I'll have to fix it before I plant anything down here like a garden. But there's that hollow, and you can see how thick it is down in there. We keep it cut right through the middle there so Mama can see the mountains, and you can see that's thick over there. This stuff down in here, there's a good south hill right here in front of me, and the deer will lay all in there. I've got a stand right over there on this other hill that I'll get in and hunt sometimes. It's right over there on the side. We'll go by that, and here's the property line. It's my neighbor's property over there. We're going to move right on down through here. That's looking up through that hollow there, and as you can see where that greenery is, it's a cut through. My mom keeps that cut out and so she can look back towards Pilot Mountain and Hanging Rock. My stand's up to the top of that hill. There's that hill coming down through there where I can see when I'm in my blind up there. As you can tell from right there where that green patch is, where we've cut real low. We logged back up all the way to and it's thick. There's a lot of greenery in there, a good place for the deer. But you can come right down here and sometimes jump them up just laying right out in the woods out there. And then I've got a stand up over here. When I'm hunting something on this end, I hunt from there. I don't like to shoot down this way towards the other property line, just for safety's sake. But you can tell the deer, it's a really good thick spot, and they like to stay in here a whole lot. Yeah, my next door neighbor has several geese that lay eggs down here. Spend the summer, hatch out, teach your little goslings how to swim. I assume that's either the mom or dad. They were just there under that log and we walked right up on him. No, I'm sure. There's my ladder stand on that end of the field. Looking straight back up through there, you can't tell it from here because we're downhill. But my blind's on the opposite hill looking back this way. And I hunt that stand right there whenever they're coming in and out, moving around down here heavy. We're going to walk right up here to the end of the field and look back towards where my blind is. I've got a little wheat patch right up here, and there's the bottom side of that field that we looked at the other day. That's the grown up part of it right there. I've got a little patch of wheat carved out on this end. My blind that we looked at the other day is straight up the hill there, right in the middle of the frame where those pines are, and I can see down this road down here. But if big buck's leaving sign down here or crossing and I've seen him, I'll get down here and I'll hunt out of this stand right here, because most of the time the wind's always blowing to the east, just like it's doing right now. I'm on the side of that hill and it just carries my scent out over the two ponds over there. And then just beyond the wheat is the beginning of the thick part of the field. I've left probably about 3 or 4 acres grown up in there, and the deer lay all around there. We're going to walk down in there for just a second, and comes out to the edge, and then that's the property line down there where you can see that field, and it continues to run on up down the hill and up that other hill over there. As we started down the hill, I looked over and there's a scrape. That's a fairly new scrape. It's probably made into December or January, chasing a late doe. I've seen some scrapes fresh in January, and that's right here on the edge of this growed up field right below my blind. We're down in that thicket below my blind. I'm towards the lower side of it. There's a lot of little hardwood trees in here. We're on a little south side of a little hill. You can see the downslope right there, and then some, as you look on up through there, it gets greener, and there's actually some grass right through there on the other side. But all this down through here has got these thick little trees in there, and the deer are bedding everywhere down here. As a matter of fact, right there's a bed right up under my foot. But they lay all down in here, and when they get up to move to go to feed, they really don't have but about 120 yards to get up there and step out in front of me. So it helps to have the deer in close. And a lot of times when you're hunting in an urban area, you know, and you let some of the fields around the area grow up, you can pull the deer in closer. The closer they bed, the more likely you are to see them before you know, it gets dark in the afternoon. They'll be close. But that's pretty much the thicket that runs up to the end of that little field over there, and then it's a thick hollow right down through here. It runs right behind me down into a little branch below those two ponds. Here's one of the main trails that's running out on this end of the field out towards that pasture. They're my next door neighbors. Here's the back corner of that field that's out there in front of my blind. You can see it's kind of a woody hollow right below it, a little branch, and then there was an old field right over in there that's grown up in pines. They're probably about 15 years old. The deer lay all out in those also. That's a bedding area. And as you cross that branch and go up the side of that hill right there, that's a big south hill. They really love to lay over in there. They can just come down that hill, cross the creek, and come right up and through here towards the wheat fields. There's another look at that hollow there, right behind the field that my blind's in. Then across the creek is that growed up pine field I was telling you about. You can see those pines in there. The deer lay all in there, but a lot of times they're right down close to the creek, right in that area that you can see right through there. Good sunny spot for them to be in the winter time, once it starts getting cold, and they'll lay down in there. I don't go in here during the season. I really don't walk around through here, but maybe once or twice a year. Don't like to scare them out, don't like to leave my scent. You know, just leave them alone. Hunt them up there on the edges. There's that big south hill I told you about. Right up in there where those big pines are, there's a lot of big laps where the big pines have failed, and they'll get in that area up there and they'll lay around. They got a lot of good cover up there, and the property line keeps going right up that edge of that field over there. Now I'm out in the middle of that second pine thicket I was showing you. It's on the other side of the hollow from my blind. There's a trail going right out through the middle of it. You can see it's a sunny area out here in these pines. We're on the edge of pines and poplars. There's another big trail going through right over in that area right there, going back towards the back. And this drops off into a big thick hollow, and it's got thicket on both sides of the hill, so they can just lay anywhere down in here they want to, and they don't get bothered. There's not a lot of dogs running them. We're in town, and we've got leash laws, and very seldom do you ever hear a dog run a deer, so they're pretty much left alone down here. Coming through that little patch of pines, run up on that piece of brush over there. It's got a grassy area in behind it with some beds over in there. This hollow opens up right below this little green pine field. You can see this creek that goes on down the hill. It's got a flat spot down here. And one of their main trails comes down one of our old farm roads that cross going up to a plant bed over there. We're going to go down through there and go up to a field on the other side that's ours, and we're still moving back on the property. That big hill, South Hill's right there. It's got big pines and some big blowdowns up in there. And then as you get over in here is an old plant bed place with some younger pines and thick. Got some honeysuckle on it. There's the old farm road running out through there. Here's a creek that's running right down through the middle. That's the top of the hill. I've got a stand right there in that area. We've got an old road that comes through from a field up there you hadn't seen yet. Runs down through the middle of the farm. And it's a place where other folks can hunt. If I'm hunting down here, I'm going to be in my blind. But there's a lot of good spots. There's 3 or 4 trails that cross right here and go right up through those pines. That farm road continues on down through there. That creek takes a hard right there below those trees you see. And I've got a real small game patch right down there that's at the back side of the property line there. But on up a hill here, right on straight down the creek, and also up here on top of the hill, the property continues on. We're going to make a turn and go up this hill. Was an old plant bed place right up there, and then we're going to go out and get in that another growed up field that's on the back side of the property. About 3/4 of the way up this hill, just to where the deer's head would be over the top of the hill here, just to the left of me. You can see they've got a trail. They'll run like that a lot of times. They'll have those trails 3/4 of the way up a hill where they can see out and see down below them, and they can sneak along and spot stuff before it spots them. And a lot of times your bigger bucks will run these trails too, looking for does. He can just slip through here and nothing but his head up to the left, and he can see everything to his right. But they've been moving along, like I said, about 3/4 of the way up this hill here. It flattens out up here on top. And there's a trail going right down through here. Back behind me is that thicket of pines we just came out of and down the hill. And that runs right on up into another little thick field right there that we let grow up. It's got a crabapple tree out in the middle of it, and then it breaks out into about a 8 or 10 acre field that's still got some spots you can bush hog, but it's grown up, got plenty of places for the deer to lay, big briar patches and stuff like that, and we're headed up through there now. You can see where the deer have been going up this hill. And this trail just crosses the top of this hill and heads over towards my wheat fields up the hollow. Right there's some deer beds in the area. There's one, two or three right down through here on the lip of this hill, right up to the very top of it. They can see everywhere around them. They've got some big pine laps behind them over there. Be hard for anything to get through, and it's open and they can see. It's a good sunny area for them to lay in. There's where something pretty big's been laying right there. That's right beside that tree. And that's about the biggest bed I saw. From that spot right there, the deer's looking right out across that hollow. If you pop out of those trees over there like we did, he's going to spot you in a second. And like I said, he can see all behind him. So I get a mixture of deer. I've got deer that stay all around the house up there in those hollows, and then we've got all these deer down here that know where that food is, where the wheat and corn is. They get up and head that way every evening, or they're coming back down through these woods in the morning. Some good spots to ambush them. But it's hard to get a much better spot than I'm in up there on top of that hill. I'll let the kids come all the way down here and hunt. Now I'm down another 15-20 feet around the edge of that little field, and you can see one of them old stands right there. It's lock on limb right in the middle of those 3 sweet gums. And I actually killed a nice 8-pointer out of that one year. Still in pretty good shape. It's all aluminum. Probably needs a seat replaced in it. Now we're coming up that little sapling field, coming up on another field. It's about an 8-acre field. Not growing up nearly as bad as any of the rest of them. Still got a lot of grassy area out in there, a lot of honeysuckle. Then we got this big hollow right here. It's got oaks. And over there is another stream right over the hill there. And then a pond. And we'll cut and go that way in a few minutes and go up that line instead of going all the way to the back. Out of this field, there's probably another 7 or 8 acres on the other side of it, but it's steep and on the side of a hill going across the sewer line, and a deer use it a whole lot, but it's a long ways down there, long ways to walk back. We're going to ease out in this field and look around up here. Should have a deer stand right up here, up above those pines. It's in that oak right there, but I don't think you can get a look at it from here. We'll look at it on the other side. Those laps have kind of fell in the way. There's the very top of it right there. And that's a ladder stand also. I can look down in here. As you can see, I got a shot to right in here, and then out into that field right out in front of us. Here we are in that next field down. I keep a spot bush hogged out through the middle of it, and then on down towards that end, I'll bush hog around some of the trees, kind of keep it open so we can shoot out here. And if you look around this way, over there is a bunch of little thick saplings. As you can see, it's still right much covering this field over, although I bush hog some in it. Nobody messes around down here. If you come back over this way, you should be able to see the stand. Right there it is. Just a 12-foot stand. It's right there in the corner. A guy cleared some stuff out, let the field grow up in weeds. It's a thicket down below it. There is a house coming in on another road about 300 yards up that way, 200 or 300 yards up that way. But it doesn't bother the deer. They still come right through here and cross this area. You go right down, there's a little creek down there. A lot of times they'll get on it and go down and come up in the middle of this field down here and cross right out through there where those little sweet gums are. Now we're on the left side of the field and those little saplings. Back to my right, that grass spot we were in, and then you've got the hardwoods that go about 100 yards down to the my line over there on the creek. But as you can see out in these little saplings, there's 2 or 3 terraces here. Saplings aren't real thick. They let a lot of sunshine in out here, and it's still thick enough for the deer to be traveling. And on down that hollow right there is the big creek, and we're going to move on out down through the saplings here to the far edge of that green spot I've got at the end of the field. Here's this green strip at the end of the field. I'll bush hog around through here every 2 or 3 years, knock down all these little small ones. I'll leave these bigger trees out here for some cover. Makes the deer feel better. I have had a blind right back there, right on that tree line. You can see right in there, but somebody got it and my seat, so I didn't put one back there. But I am going to come over here and put a stand up in one of these trees, either that poplar right there, or either we've got some poplars right in there to hunt this area. Anytime it's mowed and you got good green grass down here, the deer are using here. If you put out corn, you'll see deer down here every day. You can see those pines back over in there. There's a trail running right up through the middle of them, and from that trail you can see out here into this clearing. We've seen this slipping down through there. We spooked several bucks out of there, and you'll get glimpses of them, but a lot of times they'll glide on by this field and stay back in that stuff over there. You might see a horn or the body of the deer, but they'll slip along places like that and watch these open spots. There was a doe out here. He'll be coming out here, but a lot of times they'll try to stay in as heavy cover as they can as they check these spots out. And that right over there is the other side of the field. As you can tell, it's still pretty thick in there. Gonna have to run through there and knock some of that stuff down this year. And then this trail right here goes right on down through there. And once you get out of those trees over there, you're on another person's property. But our property runs down through these woods along the edge of his field up there. down to a sewer line. And then you've got a nice hollow down there in that pine ridge we were talking about, the bucks run-ons right down there. And we've got another tree down there we use to climb and stand on. We'll bring it in here sometimes and hunt. My kids like to get off away from the house and hunt. We're going to make a turn right here and go up this other property line where we've got a little corner down here that the part on the right juts off and runs to the sewer line, and the other line runs right on up a creek back the other way, and that's the direction we're going to head. Here's that creek that we crossed back up the hollow a ways. It's a nice little creek, runs down through the property. That's where we just came from, that kind of halfway growed up field. And they really travel. I've killed, I had a stand in a sweet gum tree right there, and I've shot quite a few deer in my younger years crossing right behind me on this big trail coming up through here. And out in front of me, I used to plant soybeans all the way down in here, but they got to where they'd eat them up. And there's a little field up there where I'd plant different stuff. Here's a trail coming up a hill, going up into these two little growed up fields down here at the end of our old farm road that comes out against this property line. But you can see where it's a well-used trail coming up through here, and then they're going right on up through there, and down into those two little growed up fields. Those pines run back over in there into some, once you get about 200 yards that way, loblolly pines, and that runs right back up to the edge of a long field behind my the place where I have my stealth camera that's off to the left of my blind. As you can tell, we're still in a good thick area. They can bed anywhere they want to. We're going through some loblollies. These are big loblollies Granddaddy planted quite a few years ago. And then there's another growed up field on top of the hill where the road's coming down through here. And it's a lot thicker. But he planted these loblollies beside of our pond down here. It's an old pond. And they planted the back on up a creek, several big fields, and from that spot right there all the way to right up in there was the pond, and it filled in. And that just happens whenever you're plowing the land, it washes in, but that's a lot of fill, because wasn't about another 200 yards of pond left up through there. But the deer love it. They love this hollow. You can get down in there. There's lots of green things that grow in there in the summertime. Straight up a hill from the pond was a pretty big field. It's planting loblollies now. It was in fescue. Used to be soybeans, corn, whatever they wanted to put in it. And right up there in that corner where you can see a little light spot, I've got several ground blinds I move around. I can get to that field from another road and ease in. Just have to go a couple hundred yards. You can get on there if there's any deer sign around there. You have to keep a watch. There's a road up there. Some big ones will cross it every now and then, and get over here in these pines on this side and kind of hang up going back and forth across the road. And so I have to go around and check, keep an eye out over there. But I just go around the edge of the field every once in a while and look for sign. We're going to move right on up the creek here. That's what it looks like going up a hollow from a pond. You've got some big hard mass trees on the right. They're going to log in here though. on their other person's property. And then on this side we've got loblolly pines up there. Those hardwoods run all the way down that edge of those loblollies. Got the pines behind us. The deer cross in several places right here above the upper end of the pond. And they've got several trails going up this hill, and I've got like a double man ladder stand right up in those pines. You can't see it, but it's where 2 or 3 trails intersect that some of the quick kids hunt quite a bit, but it's in a real good spot. Now we're going to move on up the hill. There's a ridge right here that runs right up to the old road where we come down. It comes down from my blind. When you're in my blind, looking out the left side towards a field there. It's a long field that runs down through the middle of the farm, and right straight up this ridge is where that field ends. And so I had wheat planted in it, so you get a lot of activity down here in this hollow coming to this field right up a hill here. As we move up this ridge, over to your left, you see this south hill over here. There's a bunch of little pines right in that area there, and then the road's right on top of the hill. Well, as you look at this hollow that runs right up in here, between these 2 ridges, the deer really love to lay in this hollow. You'll jump if you ride down that road or walk down that road. You'll jump them out of here, and they'll most of the time run down here and cross the creek. But they really like that spot up in there. It's just a little bowl, big south hill coming down through there with a lot of pines behind them. And then on this side we've got the ridge that runs on back up into our fields. On the right side of this ridge, moving back up towards the long field there at our house that runs down the road. The deer, this drops off towards a creek. The deer really love it over in there. We've been seeing beds coming all up through there. There's some thicker trees over there. You can see those big laps in there, pine and oak. The deer love to lay in all that stuff. And then when they're bedded right here in this area, all they've got to do is get up and walk to right there, and they're out in the wheat field. And I've got a stand down there in that curve, a ladder stand. Once again, the kids hunt it. Most of the time, if I'm hunting back over in here, I'm stalking. I love to stalk. I've killed more deer off the ground than I have in a tree. That's a nice place for them to lay in the wintertime down there, or when it starts getting cold and they want to lay in the sun. Alright, that's the spot we just come out of, coming back up a ridge from a pond. And we're standing out in my furthest wheat field that's planted down a hill. And once again, it's not a huge strip. It's maybe about 30 yards wide. Plenty for the deer though. As you can see, that runs on back up that way, and way on up there where you see that opening narrowing, right in that area is where my shooting lane is for my blind on my left side. And so I'm back up on top of the hill, the ridge now. They're headed towards my blind that's on top of the hill, and the deer cross this field all up and down through here. They'll get in these woods, chase the does. Sometimes they'll chase them up there in the fields, run them around all over the place. Joey likes to hunt this curve down here from the ground. He sees a lot of deer down here in this field, but it's a good spot coming out of these thick woods for them to get out here and feed. And now at this spot, we're probably about 600 or 700 yards from the house, down the edge of our line. And our line's right on over here in these woods, about 100 yards down in there. And all that stick down in that area. We're going to move on up here to this other patch of wheat that runs down the edge of what I've let grow up here in that field. You can see the end of it right there. The deer actually bed up in there, not 100, 120, 30 yards from my blind that's up there on the hill. We're going to move up that way. Alright, I'm standing at the end of the strip of wheat that runs right back up there to my shooting lane. Actually from my, at the left side. The shooting lane runs right down through there along the edge of those trees over to the top of that hill. And then I left half of this field, let it grow up. I'm going to have to take it down this year and plant it. I'm going to walk out through there. Usually there's some beds out in there where they lay down and just get up and come right on out into the edge of that thick wheat and start eating. We're going to move right on down through that thick side of that field. And this spot's kind of out in the middle of this field. Starts about a third of the way from the left edge and runs over to the woods. It's a pretty good sized spot. Last time I was out in there, found beds around in there. We got a guy coming to push this out though. You got to clear this out and not let your trees get big. I'll probably try to plant some beans in here. Sod plant them this year. See what they do. I used to plant these fields and they'd be full of beans, but then when it got to be so many deer, they'd eat them all off. I'm going to try spraying them this year with some to keep them out. We'll see if that works or not. It's a little low spot in here. It's a little grassy spot in between the briars and the edge of the woods. Got some broom straw, a little bit of bicolorite in it, but I can see where they've kind of laid all out in here under these trees. And this little bowl, they've got a little thick spot in between here and the road. And if you don't walk over in here, they're not going to get up and run. There used to people coming through there on trucks and tractors, and if you walk by them talking out there, they'd probably move out of here. But they'll stage up right here, and a lot of times right up here on this corner is where I'll see a big buck come out, and he'll come out where I can get a shot at him, move on over in my shooting lane. Like I said, all this is getting a little big. I'm going to have to push it out this year and plant it down. Another year or two I might let it grow up. I try to rotate the fields and let some of them grow up, plant others. If you don't have cover, you're not going to have deer. But we're moving back up into the area now where it's getting right up there close to the house, close to the dog lot, where the deer are used to hearing people and seeing people. A lot of those trails we were seeing way on the back side of the place, you know, those deer will move up in here to feed, but they'll be up here later at night and stuff. And they're a little bit more spooky than the deer that stay around the house. Now we're back on this end of the field. You can see where my mineral blocks have been, and I put out corn, and then there's my blind right there. You look down this way, here's the field we just came through, and then that thick stuff over on the left side, it's a hollow running off down that way. Got another wheat field running down to those woods, a hollow running off this way. And got some good pictures on the game cam of deer right here in this area. That's pretty much it on this side of the farm. The deer bed all right there on top of that hill. There's laps in there, and you can go right in there at any time, and there's just beds there always out here in front of my dog lot. They like to tease the dogs, but a lot of times I'll shoot deer coming right out across here, crossing from one spot to the other, going down to that field there in front of my blind. It's right up there. And I may get one more clip in next weekend. The leaves on the trees might be coming out a little bit more, but over across down that hill there's a big creek and a bunch of loblolly pines on the other side, and there's some good trails, good crossings, good bed areas over there. I may come up through there and make a trip, but that's kind of it for my postseason scouting experience here on the farm. I just don't like to get out there anymore than I have to, and I'll just set up and hunt the places I've always hunted, because the does are going to come through there and they'll bring the big buck with them. Here are a few of the bucks that I've got mounted that I killed out there on the hill. That's the 11 pointer that I shot right out here at the corner of the garden that I told you about in the beginning of my video. I had beans out there, and he was on the other side of a little hedgerow eating the beans, and his head was going up and down. I happened to see his antlers and crawled out there and raised up over the honeysuckles and got about a 10-yard shot on that one. This is one that comes straight out from down below my blind, out of that growed up field I've got half growed up, and he came out. There was about 5 or 6 does out there. One of them was in heat and she was being chased by a little buck, and he finally couldn't stand any longer and came out about 30 minutes before dark. I managed to get a good shot at him at about 60 yards. It's another one I shot. I shot this one off to the left of my blind out there on top of the hill, and he was facing me, but he was getting fidgety, so I had to take the shot straight on, hit him right at the base of the neck.